I was brushing down Dusty, my old quarter horse, when the flashing red and blue lights lit up the edge of my pasture. I squinted through the late afternoon sun and saw two sheriff's cruisers pulling up to my front gate. My stomach dropped. That gut-deep kind of dread you can't explain, only feel. At first I thought maybe something had happened to my sister Michelle in town, or maybe there'd been a fire nearby. But no. As the door opened and Karen Simmons stepped out from behind the deputies, lipstick bright, arms crossed, and smug as a dog in a steakhouse, I knew exactly what this was. "This is the property," she said, pointing right at my house. "He won't leave. I've told him nicely. My son is supposed to live here. We need this land." I froze. I swear the brush dropped from my hand. The officer glanced at Karen, then back at me. "Sir, we received a call about a housing dispute. Are you the owner of this property?" I blinked. Of course I am. What is this? What is she talking about? Karen stepped forward, practically pushing the cop aside. "Don't play dumb, Jordan. My son just got home from the Navy. He served this country. He deserves a quiet place to heal. This land should be his. You've had your time here. Move on." The audacity nearly knocked the breath out of me. I walked up to the fence, keeping my voice steady. "This is my ranch, Karen. I bought it 10 years ago. Your son has never set foot on this land." "He needs it more than you," she hissed. "It's not fair you live here alone." The officers exchanged an awkward glance. One finally said, "Ma'am, property ownership isn't based on who needs it more." Karen's face turned red, but not from shame. She was furious. I could feel it radiating from her like heat off sun-baked asphalt. "He's a veteran. He has PTSD. The HOA should have voted him in." "There was no vote," I snapped. "The HOA doesn't control who owns my deed." Karen turned to the cops again. "Well, then make him leave. Do something. He's squatting." That's when I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was war. 2 weeks earlier, I was sitting on my front porch sipping coffee when the first crack in the foundation appeared. Karen had just been elected as head of the Oak Ridge HOA, despite most of us voting against her. A former realtor turned suburban tyrant, she had a reputation for starting petty fights over mailbox heights and trash bins left out 5 minutes too long. But I lived on the edge of town, technically inside the HOA border, but on a 12-acre ranch that had been in my family since my grandfather's day. I mostly stayed out of her way, until she started showing up. At first, it was small talk, too sweet, asking about the horses, wondering how I managed all this alone. But I could tell she was probing, asking what I did for work, if I planned to sell, if I'd considered downsizing. I told her I worked remotely as a wildlife photographer and wasn't going anywhere. That's when she mentioned her son, Tyler. "He's coming back next month," she said. "He's been through a lot. Just needs a quiet place to settle." I told him I had the perfect spot. I didn't think much of it then. Just smiled, nodded, sipped my coffee. But then came the letters. First, it was a violation notice for unauthorized fencing, despite the fence being there since 1982. Then a complaint about livestock noise, and finally, a thinly veiled letter from the HOA board, strongly recommending I consider selling, due to my age and remote status. That's when it clicked. Karen didn't just want my land, she expected it. By the time the cops left my property that afternoon, clearly annoyed, clearly embarrassed, it was almost dark. Karen stood by her SUV, arms crossed, waiting for me to crumble. I didn't. But inside, I was burning. Who just decides someone else's home belongs to them? Who calls the cops over it? That night, I pulled out every deed, every receipt, every HOA agreement I'd ever signed. I scanned them, saved them, even sent copies to a lawyer friend of mine in Austin, just in case. Because if Karen thought that calling the police would scare me out, she didn't know me at all. She wasn't going to steal my ranch with some fake rules and a badge-flashing performance. But she was only getting started. The next morning, I found tire tracks in my pasture and a broken gate hinge. This wasn't over. It had just begun. The morning after Karen's stunt with the police, I found something that made my blood boil. A deep set of tire tracks ran straight through my east pasture, jagged and fresh. Someone had come through the old service gate near the tree line. That gate hadn't been opened in years, but now its hinge hung twisted and torn, like someone had yanked it open with a winch. Dusty paced in his stall, snorting more than usual. He didn't like strangers on his land, and neither did I. I took a few photos, then walked the length of the tracks. They curved lazily through the field, then looped right back out. Nothing stolen. No property damage beyond the gate. It felt like a warning more than a break-in. A quiet message from Karen or her son. We can get in whenever we want. I wasn't about to let that slide. By noon, I had a locksmith replace the locks on all 3 of my gates, and I installed a motion sensor camera near the old service entrance. I also called my friend Scott, who used to work security for a ranch in Colorado. He offered to lend me a trail cam and some infrared lights. It's not about paranoia, he said. It's about proof. I didn't know what Karen was planning next, but I wasn't going to wait around to find out. It all started coming together later that week at the HOA meeting. Now, I never went to those things. I kept to myself. Always had. But something told me to show up this time. Call it instinct. The meeting was held in the community clubhouse. White walls, gray carpet, and a coffee machine that hadn't been cleaned since the Bush administration. I took a seat near the back, unnoticed at first, until Karen spotted me and stiffened like she'd seen a ghost. She plastered on her smile and stood at the front, clapping her hands for attention. Thank you all for coming. We have a few items on today's agenda. Maintenance on the pool, repainting the front gate signage, and a proposed reassessment of community land usage. That last part made me sit up straight. Karen continued. Given the evolving needs of our members, especially our returning veterans, I propose a reallocation initiative. Properties that exceed 2 acres and are underoccupied may be considered for reassignment to better suit families in need. Whispers spread through the room. I raised my hand. Karen's jaw tightened. Jordan, nice of you to join us. Do you have a question? Yeah, I said. Are you talking about my ranch? She gave a fake laugh. This isn't personal. This is community-based reform. Tyler, my son, gave everything for this country. He needs stability and healing. Don't you think we owe him that? Someone clapped in the corner. Just one guy, her friend, probably. I stood. You want to hand over private property because your kid had a hard year? I served too, Karen. You didn't seem too worried about veterans until your son came home. The room went quiet. Karen's voice dropped. I'm sorry you feel attacked, Jordan. But this is what leadership looks like. Doing what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Uncomfortable? She was about to try to steal my land, and I was the one being uncomfortable? I walked out before I lost it. Back at the ranch, I checked my cameras. Nothing new. No more tire tracks. But I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the barn, every gust of wind across the roof made me flinch. This wasn't just some bored neighbor anymore. Karen was obsessed, and she wasn't working alone. Her son had returned, and if he was half as entitled as his mother, he was dangerous. The next day, the mail came with a brand new HOA notice. Failure to comply with community beautification standards. Grass exceeding height limit in northwest corner. Possible citation pending. That patch of land was natural prairie. I left it that way for the local deer population. Been doing it for years. But suddenly, it was a problem. I called the HOA office. No answer. I emailed. No reply. 2 hours later, I caught Tyler himself driving past my property in a beat-up red pickup. He slowed down, stared, didn't wave. That same night, one of my water pipes burst under the horse trough. Coincidence? Maybe. But when I saw the handprint on the edge of the basin, muddy and fresh, I knew better. It wasn't just about the land anymore. It was about control. Karen didn't want me to move. She wanted to break me, to make me look like a bad neighbor, a squatter, a problem. So when the final move came, the community would nod along like sheep. But I wasn't going quietly. I grew up on this land, bled for it, built it up from nothing after my parents died. Dusty was born in that barn. Every board, every fence post had my sweat on it. So if Karen wanted a fight, she'd get one. I just hoped she was ready. Because the next time she showed up, I wasn't going to let her hide behind a clipboard and a fake smile. She wanted a war? Then I'd give her one. 3 days passed without a single call, visit, or letter from Karen, which meant she was planning something. I knew her type, the ones who smile to your face but stab you the moment you blink. When they go quiet, it's not surrender, it's strategy. The calm before the storm. On the 4th day, the storm rolled in. It started with a knock at my door. Not a bang, not aggressive, polite. That was the first red flag. I opened it cautiously, and there he stood. Tyler, Karen's precious son. Late 20s, maybe early 30s. Tall, stocky. Faded Marine Corps hoodie and brand new Timberlands that looked like they hadn't touched dirt before today. His jaw was tight, his arms crossed. He wasn't here to make friends. "Hey," he said, like he was doing me a favor by showing up. "We need to talk." I stepped onto the porch. About what? He looked past me, like he was inspecting something. The barn, the fencing, the layout. This place, it's solid. Good land, good bones. Could use a few updates, though. I didn't respond. I let the silence thicken. Then he turned back to me, eyes narrowing. "Look, man, I'm just trying to be reasonable. My mom's been talking about this ranch for months. Said it was meant for a family. That you're just wasting it." I felt my fists clench. "I don't owe you anything." "You don't even use most of this place," he snapped. "You got 12 acres and what, 2 horses? You sit out here all day alone, while families like mine are squeezed into 2-bedroom houses? Come on." My voice stayed cold. "This is my land, bought and paid for. End of story." Tyler took a slow breath, like he was trying to calm himself down. "You know what? I'm not here to argue. I'm here to offer you a deal." He pulled a folded envelope from his back pocket and handed it to me. "Cash, from my deployment savings, and a little help from my mom. It's fair. Take it, and you can move on. Start fresh." I opened the envelope and nearly laughed. $20,000 for a ranch worth at least 20 times that. "Are you serious?" I asked. He shrugged. "Look, it's better than nothing. Once the HOA finalizes the land reassignment vote, this place isn't going to be yours anyway. You might as well take the money now." There it was. The real plan. Karen had cooked up some insane legal loophole and convinced her son that my land could just be voted away. I handed the envelope back. "You can take this, go back to your mother, and tell her that this ranch isn't going anywhere, and neither am I." Tyler stepped closer, nose to nose now. "You're making a mistake, old man." "No," I said. "You are." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept the porch light on and Dusty saddled just in case something happened. But the night stayed quiet. Too quiet. The next morning, the real attack began. Karen must have filed every HOA complaint imaginable. I got hit with 5 letters in one day. Non-compliant fencing height. Excessive dust from unpaved driveway. Noise disturbance from livestock. Unauthorized barn renovation. Failure to submit landscaping plans for approval. It was laughable until the code enforcement officer showed up. He pulled up in a city truck, clipboard in hand, trying to stay polite. "Sorry, man. Got a stack of complaints to check out. Just doing my job." We walked the property together. Every item was a stretch or a flat-out lie. He could see it too. He looked embarrassed. "These people have too much time on their hands," he muttered. "Especially that HOA president." "Karen," I said. "Yeah," he said. "She calls twice a week." But the real gut punch came later that afternoon. An email from the HOA board. Subject: Notice of Reconsideration. Property Use Eligibility. I opened it, scanned the legal fluff, and then saw it. Pending a vote from active HOA members, the board will consider reallocation of underutilized properties to better serve community growth and needs, per Amendment 7A. I froze. Amendment 7A? I didn't remember voting on that. In fact, I didn't remember hearing about it at all. That's when it hit me. Karen had rewritten the bylaws while she had the board majority. Snuck in a poison pill. A clause that allowed the HOA to suggest reallocation of properties. Not legally binding, maybe, but enough to stir chaos. Enough to scare people. To make the community choose sides. And it was working. That evening, my neighbor Ashley, who I'd helped fix a broken fence just months ago, walked past without saying a word, her eyes down, avoiding me. I wasn't just being isolated. I was being erased. But here's the thing about me. I might be quiet. I might live alone. But I'm not weak. Karen thought she could bully me off my land. She didn't know who she was messing with. So I made a plan. And I started with the one thing Karen never expected: the truth. The next day, I printed every HOA document I had. The deed, the original covenants, the bylaws before she tampered with them. I filed a formal complaint with the county housing board. And then I posted the truth online. A long, calm, detailed video of me standing in front of my barn, explaining everything. The harassment, the fake complaints, the vote that never happened. It spread faster than I expected. Within 24 hours, it hit the local Facebook groups. By day 2, it was on the town subreddit. People started talking, sharing, asking questions. And someone, God bless them, leaked the HOA meeting minutes showing Karen edited the bylaw alone. Game on. But just as the tide was starting to turn, I got a call from Scott. "You need to see your pasture, man, right now." I grabbed my boots and sprinted out back, and that's when I saw it. The fence was cut clean through. Dusty was gone, and in the dirt, leading toward the tree line, were fresh tire tracks. I followed the tire tracks deep into the east woods, heart pounding so hard I couldn't hear the wind. Every step felt like walking through a dream turned nightmare. My boots sank into soft dirt, tracing the path where someone, Tyler, had cut through my fence, rolled onto my property, and taken Dusty. My Dusty. That horse had been born in my barn. He wasn't just an animal. He was family. And now he was gone, taken like a piece of furniture in some eviction. I pushed through the brush until the track stopped at a clearing by the old dried-up creek bed. That's where I saw it. Dusty, tied to a tree, his saddle askew. He was nervous, eyes darting, flanks heaving, but unharmed. and beside him, leaning against a truck, Tyler. I stepped into the clearing, fists clenched. "What the hell is this?" He smirked like he was doing me a favor. "Didn't hurt him. Just making a point." "You trespassed. You cut my fence. That's theft." "It's not theft if the land's about to be mine," he said, pushing off the truck and walking toward me. "You keep fighting like you've got a shot. You don't. My mom's got the vote locked. The board's behind her. Half the neighborhood thinks you're some washed-up loner squatting on prime land." I didn't answer. I just untied Dusty, checked him over. He was spooked, but okay. I started leading him back. "You're walking away," Tyler called after me. "You gonna let this go?" I turned just once. "I'm walking away because I still believe in the law, but you better hope it believes in you when I'm done." I filed the police report that night. Criminal trespass, property damage, animal theft. The sheriff, Hank, a man I'd known since high school, came out himself to take the statement. He nodded grimly as I showed him the footage from the trail cam, the broken fence, the tire tracks, the photos of Dusty at the tree. "You got enough here," Hank said. "If you're ready to push, I'll make the arrest myself." I looked out at the dark pasture. Karen had turned neighbors against me, vandalized my property, tried to rewrite the rules. She'd sent her son to intimidate me, to threaten me. But now I had something she didn't. Proof. "Yeah," I said. "Push it." The arrest came the next morning. Karen stood in her driveway, arms folded, trying to block the cops as they put Tyler in cuffs. Her voice cracked with rage as she shouted across the cul-de-sac, "You think this is over, Jordan? He's a veteran. He's done more for this country than you ever will." I didn't respond, because the entire street was watching now. Curtains shifted, phones recorded. Even Ashley was standing in her yard, arms crossed, mouth open. The neighborhood was waking up, and Karen's mask was falling off. By the end of the week, the county issued a temporary injunction against the HOA board. An audit of all recent amendments was underway. Turns out, Karen had adjusted more than just one bylaw. She'd funneled community funds into private beautification projects, half of which had gone to repainting her own house and replacing her son's broken-down truck tires. The local news picked it up. The headline: HOA president under fire after targeting veteran landowner. Irony, right? In less than 48 hours, Karen resigned from the board for health reasons. Tyler pled down to a misdemeanor, paid fines, and left town to start over somewhere up north. And me? I rebuilt the fence, polished the old barn, planted a fresh oak sapling where the gate had been ripped out. Neighbors started waving again. Some brought pie. Some brought awkward apologies. I took them all with quiet nods. Because this wasn't just about land anymore. It was about standing your ground. About not letting fear or power-hungry neighbors take what generations of sweat, love, and work had built. It's been 6 months now. Karen's house has a "for sale" sign in the yard. The new HOA president is a soft-spoken woman named Janice, who brought fresh cookies to her first meeting and promised, "No more nonsense." I still walk Dusty past the fence line each morning, and sometimes I pause, look out over my acres, and smile. Because this ranch? It's not just mine. It's a reminder that sometimes the only way to keep what you love is to fight for it.